What's up, guys? It's the Essential John L. Crossfire.
And I am Nova Lee.
And you guys are tuned into Caught
In Conversation.
Shaka Laka Laka. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 123, Drop Dead Dangerous. As always, I am your host, the Essential John L. Crossfire.
And I am Nova Lee.
And today, we are talking to the dangerous Pete Morgan. Took me way longer to think of the title. It took me about 15 minutes probably, between recording the conversation to record this intro to actually think of a title for it. So it's not actually that long, but longer than it probably should have, and it kind of pissed me off a little bit. But here we are. We've got an awesome conversation. I don't want to rant for too long here in the intro because we've got a buttload of shit to plug in the outro. Plus, this conversation went for about an hour 40. So we don't want to have you guys, just sitting here as we drabble on with stuff. We want to let you get in and be fresh and hear Pete share his story. So with that being said, Nova Lee, if you'd like to quickly give us the song and match of the week, and then we can do the old intro and we can get into this conversation.
Alrighty. So the song of the week for episode 123 is Daddy Cop by Xander Hawley. And the match of the week for episode 123 is Joel Bateman versus Terry Shaw versus, obviously, Pete Morgan. At a triple threat, no rope barbed wire match for it's on June 29th, 2024.
Yes. So this was
a couple months back.
So this took place, I believe, Pete said, the reason. So I'll do the reason for the match, and then you can do the reason for the song. I was going to throw it over, but I'll explain. So basically, as we record this, it was recorded yesterday, the reaction, but it'll be out like 3 or 4 days ago by the time this conversation comes out. Myself, Pete Morgan, and DPC, Daniel Paul Crow, over on the What If It's Cool YouTube channel for one of our Reaction Wednesday videos, we did do a reaction to this match, and this match took place after a Brainbuster wrestling show. It was its own separate thing for the, I can't even think of what it's called. I should have written it down. I think it was called the All Extreme Championship. It's a belt, and obviously, won't ruin it too much because there's 2 different versions of this match. You can go watch it full in its entirety in the Deathmatch Down Under YouTube channel, or cheap plug, go watch it on the What If It's Cool channel with the reaction we did with basically the alternate commentary with Pete, and he breaks it down, the origins of the championship. Spoiler alert, Terry Shaw becomes the inaugural champion. But yeah, it just took place after a Brainbuster show. They did the Brainbuster show, and then they took the ropes off, and they attached some barbed wire where the rope should have been, and Pete gets his first and so far only scar that he's gotten in Deathmatch. And yeah, but that's basically the crux of it. You'd obviously, as I said, go watch, cheap plug, but go watch the reaction to get the full context of it all. But yeah, Nova Lee, why have you picked this song? Obviously, I picked the match this week. You picked the song. Why did you pick Daddy Cop? Is that a baton in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?
We've been watching The Rookie a lot, and it's been featured a couple of times in a couple of episodes. And it just lives rent-free in my head now. So that's why I picked that one. Because John's like, think of a song on a whim. And I'm like, gun to my head. Obviously, it's going to be Daddy Cop.
Honestly, though, ADHD fucking thought. As we record this, The Rookie started an hour ago. So by the time by the time we hurry up and do our intro, we go dish up our brownies that are currently breaking, which smell amazing, do the outro, we can go catch up on the newest episode, which is season 6, episode 3?
3, yeah.
Episode 3. I think there's only 10 episodes for this season too, isn't there?
Yeah, I think they cut back.
Yeah, but yeah. Is that a baton in your pocket? I'm not going to sing the song, but yeah, that's why we've picked the song. That's why we've picked the match. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together so Mrs Crossfire can give us the introductions. Who are we talking to? I know we just said it, but give him a proper introduction, Miss Ring Announcer.
Alrighty. So, today we're talking to the dangerous Pete Morgan!
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here with dangerous Pete Morgan, and of course it wouldn't be Caught in Conversation without having technical difficulties before we went on air, but we're here now. It's all good. How you doing tonight, Pete?
I'm doing pretty well, brother. Just had a gym session today, so I'm still coming down from that. But other than that, all good.
Hell yeah, that's the way. I walked 7 kilometers today for reasons I'm unaware of. I just felt like doing an extra long walk.
So,
But obviously, as we record this, Pete, we just last night as we record this, it'll be out by the time this episode drops. But last night as we record this, we did a reaction with one of your best friends, DPC. There's a very big love-hate relationship happening there between Daniel Paul Crow and Pete Morgan, and we kind of just went, hey man, like, let's tee this up. So we're here. We didn't get any questions sent in, but we've got a nice little couple, ourselves that I think we can stretch a decent episode out of. But we always ask the same question here for first-time guests on the show, Pete, and I always say it's a generic question. And Nova kind of scolds me because she's like, it's not a generic question, but I'm just like, I don't know how else to word it, but it's the same icebreaker for everyone, and it's just, what was your earliest wrestling memory?
oh, going back with that one. See, I've got a vivid memory of, I believe it was either 2002 or 2003. I walked into the lounge room and I see a random wrestling match. I believe John Cena was one half of it, but I can't remember who the other half was. Well, the earliest, vivid one I can remember every detail of was playing SmackDown Shut Your Mouth in, late 2002. I think the game had only been out a few months.
Hell yeah.
And, that's where my love for wrestling came from. It wasn't watching it on TV randomly one day. It was always the games.
It's crazy the amount of people have had say that, because I was the same. My older cousin had SmackDown 1 on the PS1 and then, No Mercy and Attitude on the 64. But the big thing was he had all of the action figures and stuff. And, he had the NWO, but then he had all the Attitude Era guys too. And I didn't know that it was two separate companies. And it just, obviously getting older and seeing it back after the fact, I was blown away, but I was very much the same. So Shut Your Mouth I played a lot of, but it wasn't until Here Comes the Pain, where I really, it's literally sitting in my PS2 right now as we record this, actually, which is kind of funny because I've got it set up next to my PS4. But that was my first introduction to Rey Mysterio, was SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, and I did not realize that he was a real guy, or they were real people at this stage. I was just like, holy shit.
You don't think about it, but then when you just randomly go, okay, I'm just going to scroll through the TV. Oh my God, these guys are actually real. What the?
Because I was in the Attitude Era with Stone Cold and Taker and stuff like this, but I was like, I didn't know who the fuck Brock Lesnar and John Cena and all these people were. I thought they were all just made up, wrestling characters, until randomly I was at a friend's house and it came on and John Cena was rapping and, saying lots of slurs that he definitely wouldn't get away with in 2024. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's fucking awesome.
I think the first one I got obsessed with was Kane. I don't know why. It was just big guy. The mask looked awesome. The suit on him looked awesome. And then, nowadays I'm not so much of a fan.
Yes.
It was just
Mayor Jacobs has said some questionable things. That's neither here nor there.
I'm a fan, not of Glenn Jacobs, let's say that.
I mean, it's kind of the Hulk Hogan versus Terry Bollea argument, right?
To be fair, even that argument is more close to the chest, because it's it wasn't Hulk Hogan who was nepotistic to his kids. It was Terry.
It's not like an Ultimate Warrior situation where he's just legally changed his name and he's just like, I'm the warrior and I hate people of color and the LGBT community. It's like, oh God, warrior, sir.
And I'm like, oh, mate, talk about living the gimmick.
But at what point, Pete, from discovering wrestling at a young age, did you decide, did you want to do it?
That actually took me a long time, because I started becoming interested in wrestling when I was about 6. So, obviously as a kid, you grow up and you watch your favorites on the old Foxtel, and I had pretty much every game, given to me for Christmas from, I think it was the original SmackDown vs. Raw all the way to SmackDown vs. Raw 2010, I believe was the stretch.
Wow.
And then I had a stuffed Homer Simpson doll that I'd have 5-star classics with on my trampoline, like that whole shtick. But wanting to actually get into it didn't happen until about 2019, because in between I got a lot into like MMA, like UFC and that kind of stuff, and I started training in that because my brother was a martial artist as well, so obviously I trained with him for a long time. And yeah, like that, it distracted me from wrestling, but I never stayed away for too long. Like, even though I had to keep it secret, because if I ever found out, like if the guys I trained with ever found out I liked wrestling, they'd be like, oh, you like that fake fighting, why don't you stick to doing MMA where the real shit happens? Like, yeah, a teenager in those days was awesome.
But was there a deciding factor that kind of went, because like we all go like, oh, I could do this or I want to do this. What was the deciding factor where you went, fuck it, like I'm gonna do this?
Surprisingly enough, it was actually the my personal reaction to watching Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho at AEW Revolution 2020.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what it was, but just for some reason, like I was going to local shows and everything on the regular by that point, but I was more just trying to be a fan of the local wrestling. Like, I used to go to nearly every show that an old Fed in Geelong used to run, GCW. Like, they used to run in Geelong nearly every month or so, and I went to those shows very much on the regular. Even went to a Wrestle Rock show or two, which is where I saw my first Deathmatch. But yeah, like, watching that show, I don't know, I just felt like, yeah, you know what, fuck it, I want to do this too. And then, yeah, as soon as I sign up to start wrestling training, I signed up for a tryout at MCW. Unfortunately, the tryout was booked for April 2020.
Oof, and obviously you guys in Victoria got butt fucked worse than all of us did, which was bad enough.
Oh, yeah, like, the timing was god awful.
So at what point then did you actually go into start actually getting to train once lockdowns and everything, were no longer a factor?
Yeah. Well, I watched AEW weekly programming pretty much the entire time, but it was only March 2021 was when I started training. I started at Relentless School of Pro Wrestling. And yeah, like, I haven't looked back since. The first day of training is always the hardest. Like, I was beat white and nearly throwing my guts up by the time it was over, but it felt awesome just to actually be in there, like in the ring, learning how to bump, learning how to get in and out, and learning all the ins and outs. Like, it was just knowing that finally I could do everything that I was in love with as a kid. And, like, not to say it's easy or anything, but like, it wasn't as difficult as I originally thought. Like, you get that mental image of, oh, you're gonna get yourself beaten up and you're gonna take all these moves for real or something like that. But it was actually like, the hardest part was just the cardio.
I feel that. Hey, bounce off the ropes 10 times in a row. Why? Just fucking do it.
By the thought, I'm like,
yeah, that's one thing. Because I watched before Nova actually asked us her first question. You mentioned Deathmatch before, so that's going to be a good segue to that. But like, you talk about you watch Tough Enough here and there, and like little shows like that, and you see like a little bit of the rope burn, but you don't really like. You're like, okay, yeah, fine. And then all of a sudden you've hit the ropes, 20, 30 times, And you're like, you just got this big fucking welt and it's all purple and shit.
Yeah.
I remember like I found a photo that I showed Nova and she was like, what the fuck?
What the actual
And I'm like, yeah, that wasn't from anything like dangerous or hardcore. That was just my first ever official in-ring training where they were like, right, you've been training for 4 months now and you can finally have the ring to train in and now you get to bounce off the ropes. And it was just like, ah.
You get to finally bounce off the ropes. Like, can I not? Like,
You're like, fuck, that shit actually hurts.
can I just be pardon me, can I just be a mat wrestler my entire career? Like, bloody hell.
So I got my first question for you. What
Yeah.
first drew you to deathmatch wrestling?
Oh, well, actually, it was early on in my career. Like, I started training in March, and in April, I started doing backstage work for DMDU. And the first show that I did backstage work for was the Juices Worth the Squeeze tournament, night 1 and 2. And I watched Callum Butcher versus Guido. And, like, it didn't get to me straight away, but it was more... Like, I'd seen hardcore wrestling. I'd seen ECW. I'd heard about, like, Cactus Jack and his IWA days. Never seen any clips or anything. But I'd only ever seen the absolute extremes of it or the weakest of it, like your WWE hardcore style matches, like that kind of stuff. But seeing it live and, like, knowing what I knew about the business at the time, it just drew me in for some reason. And, like, even to this day, I still can't explain it to you. But from then on, once you get over the hurdle of, like, oh, it's very bloody and there's glass everywhere and there's tacks and just, it's stuff that you really, at a first glance, you don't really want to watch it because it's brutal and it's violent. But once you get over that hurdle, you start forming your own opinion of it. And, like, that's when I started seeing the art to it and the beauty of it. And just, yeah, I became obsessed pretty much straight after that.
My next question pretty much kind of feeds into a bit where you've already said, but it was just about, like, deathmatch, like, wrestling. Obviously, it's a bit very, like, controversial topic, as I'm sure you're aware of. But what does deathmatch wrestling, like, mean to you, kind of thing? And, like, just, I suppose you kind of half answered that before, but I thought, yeah.
Oh, if you want me to go into detail, how long have you got? To me, especially now, it is the absolute peak of violent art. So, like, to me, I very much see it as even your regular normal death matches, like ones that have no build or just, all right, it's this guy versus this guy, they're doing a death match. Here's your tubes, here's your wire, here's all that. To me, it's very much the absolute extreme of two people want to win. How far are you willing to go to do it? And that speaks to a characteristic, I should say, of, it's like survival of the fittest, but done in a way of artistic expression. Because if you just want your gladiator fights, which what they used to do back in the days, that's survival of the fittest. But if you look at deathmatch and wrestling as an art form, and you find a way to mix the two together, which is deathmatch, you get told a story of not only survival of the fittest, but these men want to win, or these women, and non-binary, they want to win so badly that they're willing to put themselves through hell just to make sure that the other person comes with them. And, like, even if you, and that's just a regular death match. So you add on, like, story elements, you add on certain different weapons, like even for example, the Hangman Swerve Strickland rivalry, how they had their steel cage match at All Out.
Yeah,
They
the
built
internet
up
has
to
been
it.
so divided over that, and it's been what, 24 hours,
It's
48 hours, like.
Yeah.
well, very recent, but it's like you see this the spots of like, oh, he used a needle through his tongue and stuff like that, and it's like it's because if you look at the build of it, Hangman wanted him dead. Like
I mean, he
said,
burnt
I'm
the
going
house down, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he burnt the house down. He went out of his way to like ruin this guy. But the beautiful story element of that is you look at it and like Swerve did so much to get him to that point. It's like and that kind of story is what drags me in. Like it's why guys like Jun Kasai and Masashi Takeda are my absolute favorites. Because my favorite death match of all time, Jun Kasai versus El Desperado, Taka Taichi Despi Mania 2022. That story that they told during that match, because those two are best friends. Like they came up together in the business. They both have their own ways of doing things, but they both love deathmatch for the same reasons. And Jun and Kasai, he sees deathmatch as a celebration of life. And ever since watching that match, like that's what solidified me wanting to be a deathmatch wrestler, because the absolute art and beauty of it and the story of it all it's not just mindless violence as a lot of people think it is. If you look deeper and see it for what it is and treat it like not so much like a feud ender, which is what a lot of people, even in the business, treat it like. Like that's a common thing I've heard. They don't get why deathmatch is a thing all the time. It's like that's the kind of thing you end a feud with. But to me, it doesn't necessarily need to end a feud. Like it can be the feud if you treat it like that. Because what's the difference between ending a feud with a deathmatch and say a regular match, regular one-on-one? Two guys are in the ring, two guys still want to kill each other. It just depends whether they have something different or not. But in a death match, it's the absolute peak of I will go to hell just to make sure that you come with me. Yeah. And even when it comes to the celebration of life aspect, it's almost the exact opposite. Because yes, they go through hell, but for someone like me and for someone like Kasai, even it's their way. It's our way of expressing it. Because, like, for me personally, and I feel like I'm going on a tangent at this point.
No, it's really actually
it's
interesting.
your episode, dude.
So it's like, yeah.
You're right. But like for me personally, the reason I love deathmatch, like that's my expression of it if you ask me as a wrestler. But if you ask me as a person, like I've always seen wrestling as a great way of physical storytelling. Like how you can work the crowd, how you can express yourself during the match, what moves you can do, what style of wrestling you can do, how you present yourself, how you present your character. Deathmatch amplifies that in a way that I'm still a bit too green, honestly, to put into words. Like, I get what the feeling is and I get what I want to feel, but I'm still like, it's hard to find the words sometimes. But, see, now I gotta think about it. But, like, the best way I can put it is the reason I want to do Deathmatch is I want to tell my story. Like, I want to tell Pete Morgan's story, and I'll give you as my shoot name. I want to tell Paul Murphy's story. And when it comes to that, I haven't found a better way of telling it outside of deathmatch, because the scars on my body can tell my story better than any tattoo, better than any book, like anything better than that. The scars on my body can tell you that story. And that's why I want to do deathmatch, to be able to express that story to people, but also where its mark is on my body.
Yeah.
And like I've only got one scar from a death match so far, and like John, you saw it the other night. How like I got dropped on the barbed wire and a barb went straight into my tricep.
And again,
like, I wear that.
By the time this episode drops, that reaction will be out. So go back and watch that if you're listening to this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And like that, I wear that scar with pride. Like the first scar I ever got from a death match. And like I saw that, and Joel's like, "Oh yeah, that's gonna scar." And I'm like, "Oh, thank fuck," because that's always gonna be there to remind me that I did this. And like that's the first one. That's like the first step into wherever this deathmatch thing goes.
That was like super fucking poetic though. Like.
Yeah, maybe look at deathmatch wrestling in a different way.
Because like I'm one of those people where like, and obviously Pete knows I'm a fan. That's why I did the reaction. But like I personally prefer it to be a feud ender. But at the same time, I can still appreciate the art in that. And it's just like it's not black and white. It's all a case by case thing, and it's wrestling and it's subjective. And every match should be looked at as its own separate entity, and it's all contextual. And I think Pete did a fucking brilliant job of breaking that down just now. That was that was a really fucking awesome answer. I appreciate that. But just like kind of as a bonus question before I pivot a little bit, it's, all the physical aspects and everything aside, you talk about like there's challenges to both physical to both like just regular matches and deathmatch wrestling. As I explained to you, like my career was barely a career. It was what it was. I didn't really do much, deathmatch stuff. I did some PG-ish hardcore stuff, but nothing, to write home about. But for you, just from a mental thing, what is easier for you, the regular wrestling, or do you feel more comfortable with the deathmatch stuff? Because I know that some people, it's literally 50-50 with some of the people that I have asked.
Yeah, like it's still 50-50 to me because I can still enjoy doing regular matches because like even with regular matches, I can still tell the story that I want to tell. And I like taking, because I'm a massive fan of like 90s Old Japan. So your Four Pillars and your Stan Hansens and Dr. Death Steve Williams. So, like, when it comes to those regular matches, I like to invoke the way that they incorporated their matches because it's the closest I've seen the storytelling that I want to do outside of deathmatch. So, when I watch guys like Misawa, Kabashi, Taue and Kawada, especially Kawada, he's literally my idol. The reason I am dangerous is a tribute to him. It's because like they tell their story through essentially the same thing with deathmatch. Like I will drag you to hell. Like I will go through hell to drag you there with me, but they do it just with their bodies. Like they drop each other on their necks and on their heads because they desperately want to win these matches. And like outside of going on an entire rant again, it's very much that same style of storytelling. It's the bumps that we take they're showing how desperate we are to still win and to be the best. Like we're willing to put our opponents through that because we know that given the chance, they would put us through that at the same time. So yeah, it's very much 50-50 for me because I've found a way to tell stories in both ways.
I get that. But we talk about matches, Pete, and this show, as you saw on the new logo, which I premiered on What If It's Cool, for the marks, by the marks, we're all a little bit of a mark, some more than others. That's okay. You obviously are a professional wrestler, but what are some of your favorite matches that you have seen from a fan perspective? And then we'll talk about matches that you've actually had in your own right.
Oh, from fan perspective, well, outside of listing every bloody Old Japan match that I've ever watched, so like out of every Old Japan match, there's only 3 that stand above the rest for me, and that's 6'3", which was Kawada versus Misawa. I think it was 5'1", which was Misawa and Taue. And the tag team match, I think it was from 1993. Bloody hell, I can't remember the dates now. But it was a tag match, which is the Holy Demon Army, which is Kawada and Taue versus Misawa and Akiyama, or Jun Akiyama. And that, I believe, was 95 or 96. Like, Akiyama had hair. So that's how you know how old it is. You look at him nowadays and like, yeah, brother's old. Like, watch him in DDT and stuff. But other than that, I was very much a fan of, you've probably you might have heard these names. One Night Dream from Pro Wrestling Noah, Katsuhiko Nakajima versus Kento Miyahara.
I've heard Nakajima. I'm not familiar with the other one. I'm sorry, but yeah, continue.
You're right. Miyahara is the current ace of All Japan, and he is the best that All Japan has to offer at the moment. And Nakajima, he was signed with Noah for a long time. Like, he obviously started with All Japan, but then he went to Noah, and he went back to All Japan for a little while. Like, he won the Triple Crown. He had awesome matches with Yuma Anzai and Kento Miyahara, obviously. He came out to Antonio Inoki's theme for like All Japan's answer to WrestleMania against Miyahara, and like that was such a pop. That's outside of like old Japan. That's my number one. My number two, though, is, and like this one is very sentimental to me, Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega from Wrestle Kingdom 17.
Oh, dude, yes, that was awesome.
Yeah, that match was the first one I watched where, like, I had a conversation with Joel Bateman, because back in that day, I was training with him on the regular, and we had a long conversation because we had to drive from Seaford to Werribee, and like we just chatted about wrestling psychology and deathmatch and whatever. But when we had a long talk about like wrestling psychology and like having that moment where you just get it. Like, everyone has that moment where they're watching they think they get it, or they learn a lot and they're like, yeah, I've got an idea of everything. But then they watch a match or they have a conversation with like a veteran or someone, and it's like something just clicks, and all of a sudden like they get wrestling after that. So like I had that conversation with him about the psychology of it all, and like I thought I got it. But then when I watched Kenny versus Will, that was when it clicked for me, because like I watched the story between those two play out the entire match. And like it was the semi-main of Wrestle Kingdom. I didn't have this reaction to any other match beforehand, and like there was some decent ones on the card, like Bushamon versus FTR and everything. Like there was a decent card, but then just watching the little story beats and the little like nuances of their match, it was like I could finally see it. Like everything behind the moves, everything behind the choreography, behind the positioning. I could see everything behind it. And just, yeah, ever since then, that's been my absolute top of the line favorite New Japan match.
That one was a really weird one for me. And I talked about it. I couldn't even tell you which friggin' episode it was on, but I talked about it with one of my friends where, like I just said, like the pacing and everything and like all the little things in between was so brilliant. But it still felt like in a weird way they were both kind of holding back. And I don't know if that was just me having higher expectations, because I was like, it was a phenomenal match start to finish and they built it beautifully, but it still felt like there was something like missing. And I don't know if it was that they were planning on doing a rematch that just never happened, but I don't know. I'm really indifferent to that match, because like I literally was like, this is brilliant, but there was still that small part where to me it felt like something was missing. But it was definitely a great match. Maybe it's just a me issue, but yeah, it was just a really, I don't know. Just
they have a rematch down the line, because they had the rematch at Forbidden Door later in the year.
Oh, that's
It was
right.
where,
Yeah, true. They did end up doing the rematch. That's right. I forgot about the Forbidden Door pay-per-view. I'm terrible.
that was controversial. Ospreay busted out the Tiger Driver 91.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because that literally only just freaking happened. That was where he... Yeah, fuck. My God. That literally just happened, like, last year. My God.
Yeah. Oh, and it popped me so huge watching the Twitter reactions from it, because like you see a lot of like American indie workers going, guys, do not use that move. It is not worth it.
The story Ospreay in general has told with that has been awesome, though. Like when he quote unquote injured Danielson and stuff. It's fucking.
Oh no, that was a shoot injury. Like, because like. I watched the match between those two, and yeah, after he takes it, he landed awkwardly and he tweaked his neck or something. Like, thankfully, it wasn't horrible, but as soon as as soon as you see the 1, 2, 3 happen, and Will Ospreay like realizes what happens, it's like, oh god, the face drop on the guy. Like, oh, you felt.
They hammed it up though so much once they realized what was going on, and I was like, you know what? Not even mad, because I did the same thing with the hidden blade. It was like, okay, it's wrestling, why not? Like.
All right, are you okay? Are you actually injured? No? Okay, cool. Let's make a thing out of it.
But yeah, I forgot. That's right. I don't know how I forgot that he fucking... Yeah, it was like... That was the whole crux of 2K adding super finishes into 2K24. Jesus fucking Christ.
I still will not download that Pat McAfee pack, but like all the moves, all the dumbass moves that are in it are like, oh...
I've been enjoying using Pat McAfee and kicking the football around, but I'm just a fan of Pat McAfee and American football, so maybe that's just me. But yeah, everyone was so mad because like the Will Ospreay pack and the Mike Bailey moves are all in that pack, and they're like, I want the moves, but I don't fucking want Pat McAfee. I'm like, look, I can see both sides of the argument, but I've been enjoying it. But no, that's right. But I think, as I said, like I don't even know if the rematch was already set in stone at that point though at Wrestle Kingdom, but yeah, to me the point was I felt like they were holding back. But yeah, that's right. I forgot they fucking, when you put it side by side with the Forbidden Door match, it does make even more fucking sense. Like, how the hell did I forget that was a thing? My God.
If you did, like, I watched both of the matches. It took me ages to watch the second one because I didn't want it to like taint my idea of the first one. But watching the Wrestle Kingdom match, you can see straight from the off what the story is, because as soon as Ospreay like runs at him and Omega just sidesteps and goes, nope, I am not taking that, you know the story. It's Ospreay desperately to win, and like that's why he brings back the aerial assassin character and everything. He is desperate to beat Kenny, but Kenny knows this and he takes advantage. And then
I was just going to say, side note, before I ask the next part of the question, the fact that they've just done an official collaboration with Will Ospreay in Assassin's Creed is fucking sick. Oh, it's fucking sick. If I had the money, I'd buy like both of those shirts, because it's the same shirt, but obviously they did a black one and a white one. I would buy both of them. But
I only wish he did the Assassin's Creed entrance at Wrestle Kingdom, because Kenny did the Sephiroth one.
Yes.
So it's like Fantasy vs. Assassin's Creed.
I remember a few years back where he did like the full-on Assassin's Creed like entrance. It was so cool. But you've obviously been around the scene in Melbourne quite a lot, and I know Joel hates when you call it a scene because it's a business. It's the wrestling business, but it is the Melbourne scene of the business. What's some of your favorite matches that you've seen live in person before we go into your stuff, Pete?
Well, the first one I'll shout out is Joel versus Callan finale of Dream 2. Because like they had an awesome finale on Dream 1, but the Dream 2 finale was like, the immersion in that building watching that match. Like that genuinely, that's one of the few D&D events I go out of my way to rewatch, just because of the final, and like seeing Joel overcome Callan, and like being there live was amazing as well, because like there wasn't a dry eye in the house when he won the belt.
I just had a weird thought though, like, not to cut you off, I'm so sorry, But I'm like, oh, you've seen all these fucking cool matches, and then I just realized you've also refereed quite a fucking number of these banger matches. So that'll lead into a next part of the question as well. Like, what are some of the favorites that you've ref? But continue with your list.
Well, one that I watched before I was a wrestler was like one of my absolute favorites was, and it was another death match because surprise, surprise. Well, actually, it wasn't called a death match. It was weirdly called a no fucks given match, and I'm surprised that hasn't been used again. And it was Mad Dog versus Jimmy Havoc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like that was. I think it was Wrestle Rock 19, like way back in.
Footage of that because so unfortunately he's been outed as another problematic person because everyone's fucking problematic these days. But I was a very big fan of Jimmy Havoc and especially his deathmatch stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I saw the graphic of him getting signed to AEW, I was so happy for the guy. Unfortunately, like mental health problems come for us all. Like when I saw he got implemented, I was heartbroken. But then I saw like, oh, it's because like he had anger issues and he had an outburst at one person and they didn't take it well, and that's what got him. I was like, yeah. If we all had angry outbursts and we were all punished like that for it, like fucking none of us would be wrestling. Like,
yeah, definitely. Not to go on a fucking an unrelated rant, but. Some of the people that have been cancelled is ridiculous considering to some of the people that haven't been cancelled and have done much, much worse. To your point, yeah, it's a bit fucking...
Yeah, it's a bit... like not defending his actions or anything, because obviously if you know you have mental health problems, you should seek therapy. But, yeah, it's like, that just sucked, like seeing that happen to him. But, there was one match that came to mind when you first asked this too. Now I'm trying to remember it because all I could think of was all the death matches I've seen.
Just every death match ever.
There was one like really fucking good match that I believe I refed it, and the only reason when I went back and watched it. Because like when I ref, I can barely remember anything from them because of like how busy the night was and everything. Because I'd ref, but I'd also do ring crew. So even by the time the show started, I was bugged. I believe it was Matt Diamond versus Emin. Well, he was known as Emin the Kid back then, but he's Emin Asman now. But yeah, Matt Diamond versus Emin Asman. I refed that match. And, like, it was really fucking good. Like, watching those two up close and personal, like, they're really fucking good. But then when I watched that match back, I was like, fuck, they're really fucking good. Like, Jesus Christ.
That's the match that they had at Roll On, wasn't it? Was it Matt Diamond versus Emin at Roll On?
Yeah, I swear that's the one that we watched.
Because we were there front row, and I remember Emin was there. I can't remember who faced, but there was lots of flippy-doos and stuff, but it all made sense, and it was fucking awesome.
Yeah, anyway. It was genuine good watch, that one.
Hell yeah.
But my first ever death match.
Yeah, it's obviously Nova had come to shows to support me, and the first couple of shows she sat in the crowd, but every other show since then she was doing something, right? So the first show she'd ever been to properly as a fan was Roll On, and I'm like, hey babe, happy first wrestling show. Here's a fucking death match, not knowing how she was going to react, and Vixen versus Callan, she still says, was actually her favorite match on that whole card. So maybe that brings the point that you've been trying to make for this entire episode, Pete. Like,
yeah, like, because like Vixen's very like I'm very close with Vixen ever since I started in the deathmatch scene, because besides Joel does his American style very well. It's why he keeps getting work over there. But Vixen really loves the Japanese style like I do. Like she's Takeda and Kasai and all that. And like as soon as I found that out, I'm like, hey, can you hook a brother up? Like,
I'll pay you $50 for a 10-minute phone call with John Kasai. Thank you.
Oh, actually, there's a funny story with that one. I believe I might have told you this on the reaction.
You told me last night off air once we finished. But I mean, look, you can save it for Dan's show if you want. I won't hold it against you. But if you want to say it, I'm also not going to stop you from saying it. So
I'll say it. Nathan knows it as well. Like, let's get her in on the action.
Well, Nova is a massive mark for Vixen, so this is gonna make her day. This is absolutely gonna make her day.
You're gonna love this thing. So she's like Vixen's currently over in Japan at the moment. I believe she comes back. She actually might be back already. Well, either way, she was there for a week doing Deathmatch Carnival for Freedoms and working for Dai Promotion, which is I believe Toshiyuki Sakura's promotion. And randomly, I believe it was either last Monday or last Tuesday, I can't remember. Just randomly at midnight, she gives me a Facebook video call. I was like, oh, okay, what's going on? Meanwhile, I'm in bed in my undies, I'm just about to go to sleep. And I was like, is something going on? What's going on here? So I answer, and she's like, hey, how you doing? I'm at a bar, I'm very drunk. And I'm like, what the? And then she turns the phone around, and like they've got mates there, and like you see, I saw a Mad Dog there as well, but there's also Kasai there.
Holy shit!
So I'm like, oh no!
He's like, hang on, let me put on some pants.
I made the joke last night when he told me the story. I was like, the blanket became a tent because he was just like, holy shit, that's my idol.
The only thing peeking out of that blanket was just my eyes. I was just like, arigato. I forgot the word to say hello. I just kept saying arigato because I forgot the hello word. I know it's konnichiwa now, but like at that
just
point,
those moments where you just have like a brain fart where you're just like, yeah.
I was like, oh my god. I don't know, if Belle ever hears this, she's gonna fucking kill me. But like, I told her next time you do something like that, give me a heads up so at least I can put a shirt on.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that so fucking much.
Oh, it was so good. Like the phone call only lasted like 30 seconds, but oh god. Oh, it's just a funny story.
She's definitely someone I want to get on this podcast. I know she doesn't do them very often, and obviously she knows Dan, which is why she did his, but I'd love to get her on here and chat with Nova and just... No, I think she was like... Because, like, not to go too into detail, because I don't want to hijack your episode, Pete, because we're here for you, but Nova was always a very casual wrestling fan. Like, her brothers were into it in the Attitude Era and early Ruthless Aggression. She didn't know... indie wrestling was a thing. She didn't even know Australian wrestling was a thing. And there was two wrestlers, Jessica Troy and Vixen. And she got to meet both of them at Roll On. But Vixen we've met like people from Impact and stuff, and just recently went to World Series. I still don't think she's like been starstruck with anyone as much as she was with Vixen. Like, I actually had to go ask for the photo because Nova she just fucking froze. And honestly, looking back, it was the most adorable thing ever because she was just like, can I get a photo with Vixen? And I'm like, just go say hello. And she's like gone to take one step and it was like her legs just turned to jelly. And she's like, can you do it? Like, she's like hyperventilating. So I've just walked over. I'm like, Vixen, hey, really big fan, love your work. Can my wife get a photo? She's too scared to ask. And then she's literally just grabbed Nova and she's like, get over here, and like pulled her in for a hug. And she's like, Vixen hugged me. And she's like, crying afterwards. And I was just like, fuck yes.
Yeah,
so thank you, Vixen.
Trust me, Nerve. Anytime you see her, by all means, just go up, say hello, be like, can I please get a photo? Belle, like, Vixen loves that. She absolutely loves it.
She's so chill. And that's why I think, because that was kind of the first time I'd properly had met someone that I didn't know. If that makes sense? Because, like, everyone else from, like, John's shows, I knew everyone. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I don't need a photo with these guys. But then I was like, Vixen!
I don't know if you guys know, because I don't know if the footage has been released yet or not, but me and Vixen had a match for Mad Earth Society, which is like it's a no ring.
The pop-up shows, yeah.
Yeah, the pop-up shows. And like, genuinely, that's one of my favorite personal ones. Segueing into that,
yes,
funnily
yes.
enough. Hang on, should save that for that. But yeah, that match genuinely was one of my favorites because when it got pitched to me, and it was actually her suggestion, like she wanted to wrestle me. She asked for the match. And like hearing that, genuinely, I almost cried. Like I was in the middle of the gym, and genuinely reading that, I almost cried my eyes out. Like she is one of like my biggest influences when it comes to deathmatch wrestling in Melbourne, or even in Australia, even. And like, yeah, hearing that, yes, she wants to wrestle you. Are you free? I was like, I couldn't say yes fast enough. Like, oh.
See, and that's one of those things where we're all our own worst critics, especially in wrestling. And I think that's one of those things where now you can kind of take that, where if you're in the gym or whatever and you're just having a bad day and you feel like shit, that's like literally be like, fucking Vixen believes in you. Like that is such a, that's dare I say, a badge of honor. Because look at how long she's been around, and it's not to say that she's old, say that she's old, but she's a seasoned. She's one of those very few people that could probably actually say that she's a veteran in Australia, because there's a lot of people that say it, and we all know a lot of them fucking aren't. But she's one of the few people that can genuinely say that she's a veteran, and the amount of shit that she's seen in the business and come out the other side of in the business. And she's still here and she's still kicking it. And for her to have a vote of confidence in you, that's got to be like a badge of honor, or maybe a scar of honor if you want to use that for acting for you. But that's definitely something to carry with you. That's fucking awesome.
It's cool as.
Yeah, especially because I believe she's one of only the few people that are actually 20 plus year veterans. Like I believe there's only the only ones off the top of my head are her, Mad Dog, and Crackerjack. I apologize to every other 20 plus year vet that I just offended.
I've been in the business for 20 years and I wrestled for 5. Shut the fuck. That's why like, and it sounds really self-deprecating, but I just want to go over the fact that like, I'm not trying to put myself over. Like I know I'm the host, but I'm like, look, I wrestled for 3.5 years. It is what it is. I've been in the business for 8 years, but I'm like, no, like I'm never going to be sitting there going, oh, fucking, let me tell you something, kid. Like cigarette, like no. I've been in the business for 30 years, but I took a 6-year hiatus.
By that point, it's like, come on, dude. Like you're just embarrassing yourself.
Like, no. Like that's not how that works, sir. Like no. What?
Oh god. It's always funny hearing their stories, because you genuinely, like, you've got no context for the person saying, oh yeah, I'm a 10-year vet, and then you speak to someone else and it's like, yeah, they took a 4-year hiatus, and you're like, oh. It's like, oh, well, there goes that.
It's like you hit 10 years. You're a veteran? No. No.
You've been around.
Like if you've had like honestly, if anyone that's had longevity longer than 5 years, especially in Australian wrestling with how toxic it can be, hats off to you. But that's another end for another day. But before I throw it back to Nova, because this was just, I told you this would go a while. You said that you don't really like remember much when you're reffing, and as someone that started as a ref too, I can 100% like I can vibe with that. I can agree with that. Like you go in there, you do your job. But for me, there is a few that stand out, like sentimental wise. But are there any that stand out to you? Just for whatever reason, that are your favorites. Like maybe not like just because they were great matches, but just any that, for whatever sentimental reason, like stick out to you that you got to ref, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there is a few, because I remember the first match I ever refereed, which was for Mayhem Pros, Mayhem in the Marsh, July 2021, and that was Cousin Ali versus Big Boris. And like, I remember that match just like absolutely shitting a brick before I went out there because I'm like, oh God, this is going to be my first time in front of a crowd. Oh God. And like, even though I was the ref, I was still just shitting absolute bricks. And it was so bad that I forgot that I was still wearing my glasses when I was there. Because when we're putting the match together, Ali loves doing a helicopter spot, and like he loves like giving one to his opponent, accidentally giving one to the referee, and then the referee ends up on top of his opponent, and Cuz counts the 3 count. Yes. Like it's one of his absolute favorite spots. But by the time I realized I had my glasses on was when he got me up for the helicopter spot. So you just see me like I'm flailing with one arm, but the other arm is like holding onto my glasses for dear life. I'm like, if I lose these, they're gone.
See, that's kind of funny though, because as a referee, like you can get away with it not being a traditional sell. Like, just my glasses.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, and that was like a great memory because he was very, very friendly to me on that show daily. I told him it's my first match reffing ever, and he's like, "Oh no, bro, don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll be fine." And yeah, it was great. So I'll always have like a special place for Ali for doing that and taking care of me and like seeing him take care of other people coming up in the business as well. Like he's a very giving person, Ali. Another one that I remember, I believe it was the first death match I ever refereed. And that was, I don't remember. I believe it was Callum Butcher versus Felix Young.
Oofed.
Felix he's a deathmatch wrestler from Perth. Or at least he does deathmatch, but
he's a phenomenal wrestler in general from Perth. But yeah, definitely awesome at the deathmatch stuff.
Oh, yeah, he's very good, and like that was genuinely like because I only got told I was reffing that match like maybe 10 minutes before it happened. they're like, all right, Pete, you're gonna be reffing your first death match tonight. And I'm like, huh? Sorry. I checked the run sheet. I am not supposed to be reffing a death match. What is going on?
Good luck out there, kid.
Yeah, I'm like, I didn't even bring gloves. Oh shit! I'm screwed. Oh, that was funny. But that really was a good match. And like later that year, I believe I trained at EPW in Perth for one of their winter camps, and I ended up catching up with Felix again, and that was nice recollecting with him. Another one was I can't remember which Geelong show it was, but it was Edward Dusk versus Will Walker in a Falls Count Anywhere. Genuinely, that was one of my favorite performances as a ref because
Melee at the Pele?
It was either Melee at the Pele or it was.
I believe it was at the Pele, regardless of which event it was at. Anyway, could be wrong.
But yeah, Will Walker versus Edward Dusk, like that match was genuinely one of my favorite performances as a ref. And that was because at the time there was a senior referee at DMDU, Jay, and they had to, can't remember if they just fully pulled out or if something happened to him, but for some reason he couldn't make they couldn't make the show. Sorry, they're non-binary, so I should refer to them as such. And yeah, they couldn't make the show. So I had to figure out which matches I had to ref. And we had one more referee on there, Ref Tom Collis. He still refs to this day. And yeah, I got the main event. And yeah, genuinely, that was one of my favorite performances. Like that was really good. Sorry, there's going to be mostly DMDU matches.
No, that's fine. I mean, as I said, like up until it was just before the ICW shows. Like I think it was like 1 or 2 shows before that. I did reviews of every DMDU show, and then just health and everything took over, and I'm just so fucking behind. I really need to catch up on that. But it is what it is, I guess. Life happens.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think of another one because I don't remember. You know how I said like I can't remember half the matches that I refereed. It goes double for ICW weekend because I was just cooked that weekend. Because I shotgunned the entire Friday night show, which I believe was Pit Fighter 14. I believe it was one. It was either 14 or 12. I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, I reffed every match on that show. Like I entered the cage before the show started, and I didn't leave that cage until after the show ended.
God.
And yeah, it was only because I knew if I did all the matches that night, we had 2 shows the next day. So I told Tom, I'll ref every match tonight if you ref majority of the matches on the first show tomorrow. So that way, like, I don't get cooked too quickly. And then we'll both split Saturday. We'll both split the night show, like, majority my way. So I'll do majority of the matches on the night show. And then that way on Sunday, we'll do half and half. And then we'll be able, like, we'll both get a hard workout out of this, but I can take the Friday night show so that way you can save your energy. That is not how it ended up happening, unfortunately. So I did all of Friday. I ended up doing majority of Saturday's early shows because I can't remember why at that point. And then the night shows we were going to get a third referee, and I was like, oh, my prayers have been answered. But then he rocked up to the show with a concussion, so he couldn't actually ref.
One, what comes after one? Two, what comes after
two? Because I asked him, like, what happened, bro? And he's like, I took a paint can to the head yesterday morning, and I think I'm still recovering from it. I'm like, what? How did that even happen?
Fuck.
Meanwhile, I'm like crying on the inside. I'm like, oh no, that means there's only going to be 2 refs this entire weekend. Like it was so bad. We had a match on the Saturday DMDU card. Terry Shaw, he wrestled Ryan Rapid, and then for the ICW show later in that night, he had to ref the semi-main because I was like, I'm dying. Tom is dying. Can we please just have one match for a break? And that was bloody that was, and then Sunday I had a match where I got absolutely killed by Cruel. Terry got the worst.
Shout out to Cruel. So, if you're not familiar who that is, he was also Mads Kruger in MLW as well. But man, that's a big boy. That's a big boy.
He's big. God. I first met him on the Thursday before the tour because they came down a day early, and like we all met up at a bar in Werribee. And yeah, he was a tall boy. Like I was sitting on a bar stool, and I was still like looking up at him, like, "Hello, sir." And yeah, so copping a punch straight to the throat from him was lovely. I got off lightly. Like Terry Shaw got choke slammed from bloody heaven to hell with how big he got that one.
Oh Jesus!
Like I've got memories of that weekend, but like
because that was like a 6-man tag or something, wasn't it? And then like Cruel just came in and just fucking killed everyone.
Yep, because believe it or not, that was not the original ending.
Wrestling.
Oh yeah, wait, because what happened there was it was a way of like thanking guys that had done ring crew throughout the weekend. We just got a random 6-man tag put together, second match of the show. Like, go out there, have fun, boys, and just cheers for your hard work. Here's a match. So we got given 6 minutes, and I believe the teams were me, Terry, like my Texas Pete gimmick, Terry Shaw, and Aris Legendas, I believe.
Yes, versus...
And that was versus Mason Stoneheart. You won't see him these days. Bad Mood Bruce Buchanan, my ex-tag team partner. And
Was it Tom Barrett? Tom Barrett, yeah.
Yes, that was because he was the team leader for one side, and Terry was the team leader on the other side in case we got lost. So we planned the entire match, and one of us gets lost. I can't remember. I know it wasn't me because I was on the corner, like screaming for a tag because I'm like, "You're lost. Get over here."
I know who it was, but I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna bury them on the. I'm not gonna bury them on the show.
Yeah, I won't name them just so that I'll save them the embarrassment.
Yes, things didn't go to plan, basically.
It really did not go to plan. So because we went overtime, like we were literally on the finishing stretch when Cruel came out. Joel was like, "Cruel, go out there, kill him." Like, because I had done my spot, so I was selling, waiting for my next cue, and all of a sudden I hear Cruel's music over the speakers, and like I'm looking at the sound guy, like, is there a botch? Like,
you pressed the wrong button, homie.
Yeah, I was like, "Girl, what's going on? Like, you good?" And all of a sudden, I see Cruel come out, and I'm like, "Oh no, this is not a botch." And Mason, oh bless his heart, he was trying to get out of the ring. But unfortunately, the direction he went was right into the arms of Cruel. So he's trying to get out of the ring to avoid getting his head kicked in, but he went straight into him and then got thrown into a wall for his troubles. Oh, and it was like, looking back on it now, it's so funny, and apparently, like for a lot of fans, it was a highlight of the weekend. So like that was good to hear. But yeah, it's a funny thing looking back on that. It was so funny.
Oh, that's awesome. It's one of those happy accidents, though. Like, you're like, fuck, like, hey, in hindsight, wish it had have gone the way it was meant to, but then you're like, hey, like, you guys had have gone in and done your shit. You wouldn't have got to have that experience.
Yeah, exactly. Like, genuinely, it was better. Like, that got a better reaction than, like, if the 6-man had gone exactly to plan. Because, like, it had just been a regular 6-man with a bunch of Melbourne talent. But instead, it was Cruel kills 6 guys before he makes his way to the main event. Like, yeah, that was just fun to be a part of, honestly.
Fuck yeah.
And now I'm seeing what he's up to these days, and like it's cool. Like I love seeing what he's up to. He's wrestling Satoshi Kojima soon for the MLW heavyweight title, which is I don't know exactly when the show's happening, but I keep seeing the graphic pop up, and I'm like, oh no, dude, good for you. Like, yeah, wrestling a genuine legend. Like, good for him.
I popped when Kojima had that little mini run in Impact, like, I think it was like 2 years ago now by this point. Just the little things of just having him on, like, maybe not like mainstream TV, because obviously, it's TNA now and they've lost a lot of steam, but just having him kind of still in mainstream wrestling in the States was pretty cool to see. Oh,
yeah. And then he got outshined by Suzuki coming out at the end of the match. Like, yeah, Suzuki's come in, and now it's Suzuki. Bloody Kojima's turn, and now it's Suzuki's. I am really out of it, apparently.
What are we?
This is running long, brother.
Yeah, but buy the T-shirt. What are words on ProWrestlingTees.com/Crossfire? It's a thing. No, if you'd like to ask your next question to our lovely guest here.
Alrighty, so my next question is, who's your ultimate dream opponent and what is your dream stipulation?
Well, the stipulation should be obvious.
I'm going to go with Deathmatch. Eddie, lock her in.
Pillow fight.
2 out of 3 falls.
A 2 out of 3 falls. Oh, I could do like a 3 stages of hell death match.
Oh, yeah, true.
Let's fucking go.
Let's go.
An Iron Man death match, 60 minutes. Oh.
Jesus Christ.
I need to go to a blood donor hospital and just be like, give me everything. Just pump it into me until I feel better. But no, genuinely, death match. Dream opponents, it's a bit of a toss-up but I do lean more towards Joel Bateman.
Yep.
Because like, I'd love to wrestle Callan because he was the first man. He was the first guy to like really welcome me to the DMDU roster. Like, there's a small story there, but to answer your question first, and then unfortunately he's retired, so that won't happen. But with Joel, I genuinely wouldn't be the wrestler I am today without him. Like, he was the one who got me onto All Japan. He was the one who his promotion was what introduced me to Deathmatch. Like, he was the one who introduced me to guys like Masashi Takeda and Jun Kasai and Shuji Ishikawa that like have fundamentally made me the wrestler that I am today. And like, genuinely, if I could have like a death match with him and me and him just sit down and put it together, like, we'd have callbacks to, because I've told him this, like, at one point me and him were going to have a death match. Like, it was going to be my first. And genuinely, I was like shaking with excitement at the thought of it. And like, unfortunately it fell through, but like, I wanted the finish to be a callback to like every wrestler that inspired me and him. So like, I was going to hit like Callum Butcher's finisher, which was the Chelsea Grin or Will Ospreay's Hidden Blade, just as like a shout out to all of them to say thank you for helping me come this far. So like, I would definitely do something like that with him, and that'd be my dream match. Like, just to say thank you to everyone who's helped me along the way, especially him, because yeah, like I said, genuinely, I would not be the wrestler I am today without him.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'd pay money to see either of those, and I definitely would love to see Callan come back at some point. I was a very big fan of what he was doing, and he was one of the ones where, when there was those people going, oh, it's just deathmatch, he was one of the ones where, and even Nova were pointing at Callan going, watch this guy, look at the story he's telling you, and try and tell me that, it's not, try and tell me that it's not wrestling when he's taking you on that fucking emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, I love watching back and watching Callan's stuff, just how good he was, how much emotion he could get out of the matches. Like, being there for the first Dream tournament and seeing him win the final, like, I say there wasn't a dry eye in the house. There was literally not a dry eye in the house. People in the back in the locker room like came out and were crying and clapping and cheering him on. Like, oh, beautiful moment.
That's the shit. Like, that right there, that is the shit you want for professional wrestling. Like,
super marky, but like, I popped when he knew who we were.
Yeah, the fact that Callan, like, I made
like...
the joke because, like, he's like, oh, do you want to hold the title? Because he had the deathmatch title. And I'm like, oh, this is the only title I'm going to get. He's like, no, you guys had the wedding titles, didn't you? That counts. He's like, that's the most important one. And I was like, Callan Butcher knows who I am.
We're just big old fucking marks. Yep, that's us.
So that was cool. He knew who I was. But yeah, he was one that was, on my bucket list to wrestle just in general. But, unfortunately... he went and did his own thing, and family and stuff comes first, which 100% I get that, definitely. Yeah. But man, if he ever comes back, I'm gonna be right there. That's for sure.
Oh, like when I was at Dream 3 and I heard he was like coming in, like I saw him in the back and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Are you back?
The cogs just start turning of, he's going to do a spot, he's going to do a run-in, he's going to...
You're coming back? Like, you're growing your hair out? Does that mean you're coming back? Like...
Man, when he shaved his hair, I was like, oh, the retirement's real.
Yeah, that was when it was real. That was when it was... And when I saw he was growing it back, I'm like, does this mean you're coming back?
Mr. Butcher, what does this mean?
Come on, bro, answer me already. And he's like, no, I'm just here. And it's like, oh, okay. Go off in the
yeah, maybe look, they say never in pro wrestling, but we won't get our hopes up too much just so we don't get our hearts broken. But I always
it's more. I know the story of him and Aaron, and like it's like Erin, thankfully now is like she's gotten over a condition. I can't remember the name of it now, unfortunately. And like she was recording I think it was like an audio documentary about Deathmatch.
It only goes for like I mean, she worked for ages on it, but it went for like 20 minutes, half an hour maybe ish.
Yeah, something like that. And like it was because I remember seeing her record some of the ringside stuff at a Yarraville show we did. I can't remember exactly, but just watching her do that, and then when it was released and listening to it, I was like, oh wow, like that is a genuine. It's a genuine love story. It's a genuine tragic story, and like you can understand listening to it why Callan wanted to retire. Like it adds. Like some people were like, "Oh, it came out of nowhere. He retired just because of his mental health." But like you listen to that, and you hear like he goes into detail of the actual reason that he was thinking of giving it up, and just like as a fellow deathmatch wrestler and like even as a father, it was very moving.
Yeah, I listened to that like literally the day she put it out because I'd been waiting for it. If I can find the link to it again, I might even put it in this episode, like when I put it together and just put the link to it. But no, like the amount of work she put in, like I like for it to just be like the half an hour thing is insane because I was expecting it to be like an hour or so long. With the amount of like, obviously I don't know Erin personally. I got like a hi bye at Roll On when I helped with the ring crew, but that was about it. But knowing from other people the amount of work that she put into that project, I thought it was going to be a lot longer than it was, but it was super impactful regardless, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it really was. If you find a way to like dig through some archives or Google like a bunch of stuff like Erin and Callum Butcher's story, like it is very well worth the listen.
Because I think it was actually part of I can't think of the actual website, but I think it was actually an ABC owned production, wasn't it? That it actually ended up on with the website.
Was because that was how I listened to it. I found the link on a ABC website, and that's how I listened.
Like that's pretty fucking like that's pretty cool. That's still a major like network in Australia and worldwide actually. Yeah, but that's freaking that's nuts to me.
Yeah,
I think even like Charlie Evans even did something with Vice for Deathmatch as well. So that's another thing as well. But it's just cool. People, waving the flag for deathmatch wrestling, such as yourself. But I always stray away from wrestling for the last question. I always do a fun fact, and I try to tailor it to the individual as much as possible. Do you have anything else you wanted to ask Nova before I go into this? Because I got a feeling that this question is going to lead to maybe a rant or two or three from Pete as well.
Yeah, unlike the other questions that just led to a chatty conversation.
I think it's safe to say that you, much like me, you're a bit of a nerdy individual. You made the joke last night that you're currently storing your Dungeons and Dragons dice in the Alpha Cup currently. And obviously over on Dan's actual feed with What If It's Cool, you've done some stuff for X-Men, which I still need to watch, but I want to go back and rewatch the original before I watch the new one. And you're about to do some Batman stuff with Dan as well, but you're a bit of a nerd, which again I'm 100% with you on that. But you're very big into comics and stuff, a lot more than I am. I collected comics somewhat as a kid, but I was more into just the movies and the TV shows and stuff. But in all of film and television, Pete, what is both the best and the worst comic to screen adaptations in your opinion?
Oh boy.
Take off your pants and crack a beer in the son of a bitch. Uncle Pete's going to tell you a story.
How long have you got? Because you need longer. Well, the easiest one to answer for me is always the worst, because
I'm a huge Batman fan. Always have been. Like I even before I was a fan of wrestling, I was a fan of Batman. Like I remember being 5 years old and like warping the old videotapes that I had of like the 5 or 6 Batman the Animated Series episodes I had. And when I first started like taking my comic book collecting seriously, the first two books that I bought were Batman: The Long Halloween and Batman: Hush. So when I say that the animated adaptation of Batman: Hush was so bad that I turned it off 4 times, like genuinely, it took me 4 attempts to watch it all the way through. Like, oh wow, just they absolutely ruined what the core concepts of the comic was about. Like the core concept of it, or at least how I perceived it, was the mistakes of it. Like the mistakes of Bruce's past were coming to ruin Batman's present. So, like with the story of like Thomas Elliot, and even with the cameo of Jason Todd, he was using literally everything he could to ruin like Batman as well. So, like the first thing that took me out of it was they changed certain characters' places. Like at the beginning of the Hush comic, it opens with Batman saving a boy who was being held hostage by Killer Croc. Like your basic Batman hostage situation. Seen it 100 times. And but the reason that he kidnapped the kid was to get money because Killer Croc wanted to like buy a mutagen to be able to look human again, because that's always his character arc. So it made sense. Like it's a good start to the story and loved it. But then in the movie, they changed it to Bane.
Okay.
And the reason he did it was just, because I just want to fight the Bat. I was like, what? You know who he is. You know where he lives.
So even you just explaining that to me, I'm just like, that. Who booked this crap?
You watch me. Now I'm going to shout that out. If I don't like something, be like, who booked this crap? And just, I was like, bro, you know, like there was a famous storyline, a very famous storyline where you find out his true identity. If you want to fight him, just go to his fucking house. Like,
Wayne Manor is pretty easy to find if you type it into the fucking GP. Or even
where the fucking Batcave was. Like, come on, man. So, like, that was the first thing that made me go, like, what the fuck are they doing? And then they shoehorned in, like, the Hush-inspired outfit that he had, or the outfit, uniform, costume, whatever. Because at that point, what DC movies were doing were they were trying to follow very loosely and very badly, might I add, they were trying to follow the continuity of the comics. So every movie, post Flashpoint Paradox was based in like a New 52 style universe.
Yes.
That's why the first movie post Flashpoint Paradox was Justice League War, which was based off of Volume 1 of New 52's Justice League run. And because of that, he starts off the movie in his New 52 outfit, which I was like, all right, they got to keep continuity somehow. And then they do the iconic scene of Hush cutting Batman's rope mid-glide, and like he falls down, cracks his skull, and does all that. I was like, all right, cool. And then in the comic, it was Huntress who picked him up because she's part of the Bat family, and well, at least she was at that point. I'm not sure what's going on with it now, but she was there and doing all that, and she picked him up, got him in the Batmobile, and then drove off. But this time it was Catwoman, and I was like, where the fuck did you even get the bike? Like, what the fuck? Hang on, how can Alfred contact you? And because this was the first time she had popped up in any of the movies. Like, even the whole Son of Batman trilogy, she wasn't in there. And I was like, what the where'd you come from? Like, that's just some things. Like, the major problem I have with it is they killed off Thomas Elliot. Like, that was the main problem I had with it, because then it's not Hush. Like, the point of Hush is that he's Hush. And if it's not Thomas Elliot, it's not Hush. Like, God. And they didn't even do anything spectacular with it, too. It was just, like, they teased it was him for the first two-thirds of the movie. And then when Batman's finally trying to confront Hush, like, he's finally tracked him down, just all of a sudden, Thomas Elliot's corpse pops up from the roof. Like, he just comes down and is like, oh, he's dead. Like, oh, okay. And then Batman literally just brushes him aside and keeps walking. I was like, what the fuck is this? That was like the second time I turned it off. I was like, what is this? Like, what am I watching? This is not Hush. This is fucking, I didn't even know what it was. It's Batman chases a mummy in a trench coat. Like, and he might have guns every now and then.
Oh, geez.
Oh, yeah, genuinely, that made me so mad watching that. And, like, I've got to save it because, like, me and Daniel do podcast episodes where we compare comics to movie adaptations. And we've done one on The Killing Joke, and Hush is next. And I told him, boy, this is going to be like a 2-hour episode, I tell you.
I cannot wait to listen to that now. I need to rewatch The Killing Joke, because I heard a lot of friends say that it was good, but I fell asleep while watching it, so...
Yeah. Skip like the first 40 minutes or so, like skip the entire fucking Batgirl storyline. But then when you get to the actual like Killing Joke part, it is actually good, and I did actually enjoy it.
See, I think that was my issue. Like I'd just done like a night shift. I was working at Macca's at the time because I was fancy. It was like 3 a.m. and I was like, fuck whatever, I'll chuck it on. And then like they're just like, and I'm like, and then I wake up and it's like roll credits, and I'm like, oh fuck, okay. I'll turn it off.
Yeah, well, that was better. But now the best one there. The best one, everyone's going to automatically think, oh, The Dark Knight. And, like, it was good, but it's just a good Batman movie. And not even a good Batman movie. It's just a good movie that has Batman in it.
Yes, for sure.
But the best one I have seen, I'd say All-Star Superman. Like, it didn't catch everything that the original book gave to the Superman character, because, like, there's a reason that everybody's looking forward to Superman Legacy as soon as James Gunn said, oh, yeah, I'm basing this off of, like, All-Star Superman style. Because, like, if you compare it to, let's go on a tangent, not about the movie at all. Like, if you compare, like, say, Zack Snyder's Superman, like Henry Cavill's Superman, you can see he is a good man, but, like, it was just the poor writing, because it's like Scott Snyder read, like, Injustice or Superman Red Sun, or, like, comics where Superman was always the bad guy and was like, yeah, I'll just do that. It's like, no, because then you fundamentally miss what the character is. But if you watch All-Star Superman, it is genuinely, like, to anyone who says, like, oh, Superman has no good stories because he's, like, lawful good or shit like that, get him onto All-Star Superman, because it genuinely shows the absolute best of that character. Like, you see him be his absolutely absolutely selfless. You see how far he's willing to go for humanity, what kind of legacy he wants to leave, because the whole story is about him dying. Like, he's dying because he got overexposed to the sun's radiation, and he's, like, basically exploding from the inside out. But seeing what he does to make sure that the Earth is safe while he's gone, and especially the ending where, like, Luthor recreates a serum that he made that Superman made for Lois Lane to give her Superman's abilities for 24 hours. And at the end of it, like, the end of that scene where Luthor's taken the serum, he's had the abilities, and you see the monologue that he gives. It's like Luthor finally realizes why Superman was always a good guy, because he was always jealous of him. Like, oh, I could have saved this city if it wasn't for you. But Superman tells him, if you were really a good person, that wouldn't have stopped you. So you see like their character dynamic really take off in that film and in the comic as well. Second best one though, it's another Superman one, Superman versus the Elite. And no, it's not Superman versus the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega.
The Elite. The Elite.
Although now I want to pay all my money to see that. Like, will the V trigger work? Let's see. But it's genuinely like, if you ever hear like the TikTok sound of Superman saying that, like, oh, I dream of living in a world where peace and justice and all that, like, that monologue is from that movie. And it's based on a comic. I can't remember the full name of it because it is like a mouthful of a name. But I think it's called What's Wrong with Truth, Justice, and the American Way, I believe. And yeah, you watch Superman versus the Elite, and yeah, like it's very much because it touches on the age-old problem of superheroes. Like, why don't they kill their supervillains? Because if all that happens is they escape prison, kill a bunch of people, get stopped, get put back into prison, escape prison, kill people, like that whole cycle, why don't we just kill them? And that comic plus that movie really touches on that subject. And yeah, like, you get that monologue from Superman of like, there's a reason I don't kill them, and that's because if we do stuff like that, it makes us just as bad as them. And like, we need a world of peace and truth and justice, and I'll never stop fighting until that happens. So it's like, oh, it just hits you at the end of it. It's like, especially with the way they animated it, because they based it off of like 1930s serial, like, I think it was serial cartoons, which is like the old
yes.
It's not like Looney Tunes or anything, but that's the art style.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
That's so cool.
Like, yeah,
That's so cool.
yeah. So you get like that old timey feel to it as well, and like,
It's like
yeah,
that, let's
it's just
all go to the lobby. Like that kind of style of, yeah.
Yeah, like, and even like the Tootsie Pop commercial, like, oh, how many licks does it take to get the center of a Tootsie Pop? It's like that kind of animation.
Fuck yes.
And like, it's just really well done, and it's a really awesome film.
See, I'm gonna have to check both of those out then, because I've always been very, very indifferent to Superman in terms of the live action ones. The Henry Cavill one's been one of the only ones that I've really liked, besides obviously the original back in the day. So I'm going to have to go back and look at some of these and check them out, because I have found that, like, with a lot of like the bits and pieces that I have seen of, you know, all the different fucking animated series and like the video games and stuff, I do find I enjoy the animated versions of Superman a lot better anyway, like just in general. So I'm definitely going to have to go check those out.
Oh yeah, I could give you a whole list of ones you should really check out after this film, like after this podcast. Jesus Christ.
I'm just going to receive like a fucking 10-page monologue and be like, and then by the way, oh shit, I forgot this one.
I'll message you in like a loop. Oh yeah, shit, I forgot to tell you about this one.
But hell yeah.
You're gonna do 2 episodes. One is I'm a wrestler, and the other one I'm a comic book fan.
So the long and the short would be safe to say you very much prefer DC over Marvel.
Oh, it's more. I prefer Marvel comics, but everything else, like movies and games and stuff, is usually DC.
See, I'm the opposite, which is kind of funny. I enjoy the DC video games, besides the new Spider-Man one. Well, not the new Spider-Man one, because I haven't played Spider-Man 2, but video games and stuff, I've always preferred like DC and shit. But when it comes to movie and TV, I've always... But then in saying that, the animated DC series have always been better than the animated Marvel.
I enjoy... I enjoyed bits and pieces from both. Like, even Marvel's had good animated films every once in a while. Like, Next Avengers Heroes of Tomorrow, like, that one was a really good one. It's hard to get your hands on now, but it really was a good one, because it's the story of, like, the Avengers kids and in a post-apocalyptic world where Ultron's taken over.
Fuck yes. See, eventually we're going to have to do another podcast where it's like you're talking about one that I've actually seen and be like, cool, let's dissect it and just completely steal Dan's gimmick.
I know, right? Because I mean, like, you asked me, like, oh yeah, you're a bit of a nerd and everything. Literally, the one tattoo I have is the Black Lantern Corps logo.
Okay, well, you mentioned Lantern Corps. One last bonus question before I let Nova Lee fucking round this up, right? Everyone shits on the Green Lantern movie and da-da-da-da-da. But, just if you take away the shitty script, which is hard because that's what makes a movie, is the script, right? But if you take away the shoddy writing, what is your opinion on Green Lantern as a film? Because I feel Ryan Reynolds was the fucking perfect Hal Jordan, and I actually really did enjoy Sinestro in the movie as well.
See, I enjoyed Sinestro in that film. Like, because see, I'm of the mind that, like, Ryan did a good Hal Jordan, but he wasn't a good Green Lantern.
Bingo.
And the reason,
bingo.
Yeah, like the reason I say that is because it's Ryan Reynolds doing Ryan Reynolds things. It's what he does. But if you look at Hal Jordan as a character, when he needs to be serious, he can be fucking serious. Like, this is the guy who wiped out the DC universe in the early 90s. And you look at the way it was portrayed in the film. When he got the ring, he just treated it like a toy.
Yeah. Like
in the comic book series and stuff, like every other interpretation of him, he treats it like, oh yeah, sweet, I can be a superhero now. But in the movie, it's like he just freaks out about it, and he's like scared of it and everything. Like, yeah, to be fair, it's a more realistic reaction, but like, yeah, I don't know. It just felt a lot different, and yeah, he was a good Hal Jordan, not so much a good Green Lantern. That's always been my opinion of it.
I've only ever watched it from start to finish twice, and it was so weird because the first time I watched it, I was like, "This is shit," but then when I rewatched it, I was kind of like, "It's alright." Like, I enjoyed it more on the rewatch, but yeah, it was just
like, there's definitely worse out there, but you can see why everyone thinks it's bad. Like, no one reminds Shaquille O'Neal that he played Steel. Like,
because like I've had this conversation with so many people, and that's just almost my defense. It's like, look, movie shit, but Hal Jordan, Ryan Reynolds. But I think you've hit the nail on the head, is nailing the two down, and I have the same. We won't go on that tangent, but my favorite superhero is Spider-Man, right? And it's like, some have been good Peters, some have been good Spideys. Tom Holland, I feel, is the perfect blend of both. But then, like, there's so many, like, different arguments that I've had, and they're like, no, it's this person. And I'm like, but he's not a good Peter, or he's not a good Spider-Man. And they're like, no. It's because I'm like, you're not even giving rational. You're just using nostalgia and stuff to be like, this guy because he was mine, or that guy because he was mine. I'm like, just,
Genuinely, the best Spider-Man to me was, I can't remember his voice actor's name, but the 1994 animated series one. He's always been my favorite.
But I feel, again, the animated ones for both Marvel and DC have always been on point. Like, Mark Hamill as the voice of the Joker is fucking iconic. Like,
oh yeah, no one's gonna touch him.
And there's always the argument of, who did it better? Like, was it Nicholson? Was it Ledger? I still do think the Leto one was underrated, maybe underutilized, but that's another story. But then the Hamill one, like, fuck the live action ones. Hamill, as the voice of the Joker is
like that. That was beautiful watching that. Like, because I remember, I can't remember what show it actually was, but there was the massive Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover between the CW shows, like Batwoman, Arrow, all those. And like you watch, because it was the first time Kevin Conroy played a live action Bruce Wayne, and it was based off of like the Kingdom Come storyline. And Yeah, I was like, where's Hamill? Like, Hamill's got to be there somewhere. Like, can it just be a scene where they stare at each other? Like, for some reason, they have to go to Arkham and just Conroy just stares at Hamill. Like, I just want to see that.
They did actually, I can't remember the name of it, and Pete probably knows it off the top of his head, but they just released the last one, the most recent one that Conroy did before he passed. Obviously, they've released it post passing,
yeah.
but yeah, they just released the final act of him as the voice of Batman.
Yeah, because everyone thought it was going to be Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, but then they realized, oh, wait, this is actually going to be pretty crap. So, no, it's not his last performance. It's actually this one.
They're just like, thank fuck we had that in the can.
Ooh, thank God for that. Because it was actually like very poetic, that ending. Because it wasn't him and Hamill. I think they had to replace the Joker voice actor at the last minute. Because if you watch the scene, it does not sound like him.
Hamill did go on record to say that he's pretty much done now without Kevin there, so like it kind of makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, because I think Kevin recorded his lines, but Hamill didn't get a chance to record his, and that's why they had to get another voice actor in at the 11th hour. Because, it's... Because Hamill was originally, after, I think it was Batman Arkham City, he said he was retired from Joker, unless they did a Killing Joke adaptation. And then they did it in 5 years later. So Hamill always says oh, I'm going to retire the Joker. But then he just keeps coming back. But now finally that Conroy's passed away, as well as Arlene Sorkin, who was the voice of Harley Quinn, the original voice actor.
The OG. Dude,
yeah.
Again, I still need to watch a lot of it probably, but that was one that I did watch a shitload of, and when I saw that, I was just because Harley Quinn's my favorite DC character in general. That broke my fucking heart when I saw that.
Yeah, I felt bad too because if you want to know how much of a nerd I am, my daughter is named after Harley Quinn.
Hell yes.
Her name is Quinn, but yeah, she's named after Harley Quinn, and there's some moral quandaries with that, because as people have pointed out, she's abused by the Joker. Yeah, but I'm for one, it's a cool name, and two, I grew up with Batman the Animated Series, and Harley Quinn was one of the main episodes I remember from watching on those old tapes that I warped the absolute shit out of, was the episode where Harley finally breaks up with him. That was one of the episodes. So I always had the idea that Harley was a henchman, but eventually she breaks away. And that's always the idea I've had of her in my head.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, yeah, for sure. But we should probably throw this over to Nova so she can wrap this up and we can actually plug what you have coming up. Pete.
Fair enough.
So where can everyone find you, your social media links and whatnot?
Oh, yeah, that's always the last question. Well, I'm always at danger_is_Pete. You can find me on the Twitters, you can find me on the Instagrams, even on the TikToks if that's your fancy. And yeah, that's pretty much everywhere I am. I have a Facebook page now, but you have to look up Dangerous Pete Morgan. And yeah, besides that, I'm a regular at Alpha Energy. I'm their cup champion, so I'd better be. I wrestle regularly for Adrenaline Pro Wrestling as well as Brainbuster Wrestling Project, and Australian Outlaw Wrestling going forward too. So yeah, I get around.
Another question I had too, your merch and stuff. You got any merch and stuff that you want to plug?
Not right now. Unfortunately, I've been a bit procrastinating on the merchandise thing. It's just I see everybody oh, you should get shirts and all that, and then I go, all right, how do I go about getting shirts? And they're oh, you got to get artwork done, and then you got to find a printer to get it done, and then you got to get it done on all these shirts, and I'm oh, that just sounds like so much work.
Dude, honestly, the amount of effort that I just went to get the fucking Radiation Kick shirts made up. If it wasn't for a charity show, I probably would have looked at it and gone, fuck this, I quit.
It's like when you got the hats made and they got diverted through Russia and shit, and we're like, what the fuck?
The hats came from the UK and they got sent to fucking Russia, and I was like, what the fuck?
Like I see the guys like B Squared and John Stop Action do it all. I'm like, how?
JSA is a freak. He has probably the of like the current crop of guys. Like for someone that's like still fresh in the business, he always like has new shit, and I'm just like, first of all, fuck you for being able to afford it. Second of all, like the amount of hassle and grinding that he must go through to put it all together and stuff.
Yeah, and I love how you called him fresh, even though he's been in the business now for like 6 years.
I mean, look, wrestling. I mean, I suppose you could look at that either way. 6 years can either be nothing or it can be a long time, depending on who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, it's true. It's not how long it is, it's how you spend it.
But yeah. where can we find you coming up? Shows and stuff in particular, Pete. I know you just mentioned a lot of promotions, but this will drop on the 15th of September. I know that on 21st we do have Alpha Energy 8 as well as Alpha Inevitable. Do we have anything else that we have coming up that we can plug and post links, the tickets and all the fun stuff?
Well, how long ago is the 15? 6 days. I'm trying to think because like a lot of what I have in the pipeline hasn't been advertised yet. Outside of that show, there is a bunch of shows coming up in November for me. There's going to be a Brainbuster show in November. I know there's definitely an Australian Outlaw wrestling show happening in November in Bendigo. But yeah, other than that, I'm not entirely sure because. Yeah, I'm not even sure I can actually tell people if they haven't been advertised.
Well, there you go. I'll link the socials to both Outlaw and Brainbuster, and y'all can go follow them, and just make sure you keep an eye out for Pete's match announcement, and then go from there.
Yeah. We'll look forward to it. I love being told to plug things when I have no information on them.
Oh, dude, I feel you. I'm like, Dan's like, what are you coming up? And I'm like, well, I got a show here and I got a show here, but tickets and post a link and da-da-da-da. So let's just plug this one.
Don't worry, Daniel does the same thing. He's like, all right, Pete, have you got any shows you can plug? And I'm like, you damn well know because you work half of them and you know half of them haven't been fucking announced.
But I will stress once again, though, before I let you go, Pete, not only do we have Inevitable on the 21st, which the link will be below, because I do have the link to that, because I did Ray Picante for last week's episode, but earlier in the day, $2 to get into the Pipeworks markets. $2 and you can just watch the wrestling. And then you can go get some souvlaki or whatever else Dan was eating that was making me very envious. But $2 for wrestling, not to mention all the other fun stuff that's around.
Yeah, they've got a huge kids play area there now. It's got jumping castles, it's got maze, ball pit, everything.
Hey, parents, just throw your kids in the ball pit and fucking ditch them while you go eat some souvlaki and watch the wrestling.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm not a parent. Definitely don't do that. But $2 for wrestling.
Well, you're married, so you're halfway there.
But I cannot wait to see footage from I need to catch up on the last Alpha show actually, but I cannot wait to see footage from the Alpha show and see what you do next. And I'll keep an eye out for the Mad Earth show for yourself versus Vixen, and hopefully in future you can get a rerun of that within the traditional wrestling ring, whether it's a normal match or a death match or whatever else. Well, hopefully,
She challenged me to a death match for the title, so I've still got that in the can.
Oh, that's right. You still got the the fun stuff. That's cool.
She challenged me, so I'm happy whenever that happens.
Hell yes. I'll definitely keep an eye out for that. Hopefully that's going to be one that, bills and health and everything can bugger off, because that'd be one that I'd love to see live. Death match, Vixen versus Pete Morgan.
Well, when it's
just go stay with DPC.
Yeah, DPC, I'm sleeping on your couch, bro. no, I appreciate you jumping on, Pete. And I was like, as I said, I was like, the amount that we ranted last night as we record this, once we stopped recording, I'm like, look, we throw it together. I've got the core 5 plus a few little ones thrown in. I'm like, we can get an hour and a half out of this. We're on like an hour 40 at this point. So
hell yeah.
So this is going to be a 2-hour episode by the time we throw the intro and outro together. But that's all right. That's all right. But I appreciate you jumping on, man. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. And I definitely, I have no doubt that with our very like-mindedness, we'll definitely be able to get another episode or 2 or 3 of just random nerdy shit and just...
You think I talk a lot about wrestling? You should hear me talk about comics, bro.
Do a Markapalooza and it's like comic characters.
Oh, dude, yes. Fucking bring Pete in as a third when we do like wrestlers versus fucking Shamalama Ding Dong, like whatever. It's like, it's like the most obscure fucking like comic.
Oh yeah, I'll come up with something. I'll think of it.
Wrestlers versus Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah. Just get my brother on as well because he's just like massive nerd.
But no, I appreciate you jumping on, my dude, and yeah, definitely get you back on at some point. And it was good to talk to you properly because, as we said, we did meet at Roll On, but you were just kind of, it was ring crew. The show was over. You were cooked.
You mentioned that, like, we met at Roll On and doing ring crew, and I'm like, I don't even remember the fucking night, bro. Like, well, I'm glad you remember because I sure as shit don't. Thank you both for having me on, though. I appreciate the coming on here and having a chat and being actually able to express a few things that I've had trouble expressing as well.
No, I appreciate giving you a platform, man, and I can't wait to, as I said to you last night, I've said it to Dan, I've said it to other people, you have been one that I've been keeping my eye on just as a fan, and I'm like, it's so cool seeing you grow, and I can't wait to just keep watching you do more cool shit, man.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, see you later, brother.
See you later. Take care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was dangerous. Pete Morgan, as Novalee so lovely put it in the intro there. We're cooking under pressure. I believe there's 4 minutes left on the brownies for those playing at home. So we're going to try and get in and out with this intro, with the outro rather. If I keep fucking tripping over my words and ranting, that ain't going to happen.
Mate!
7. But no, this was episode 123, Drop Dead Dangerous. I really thank Pete for coming on. Opening up, being vulnerable, talking about his story, and then just nerding out a little bit at the end. As I said, I've never been super big in comics, but I love listening to him and Tass, aka Manos. He's someone I'd love to get on the show, obviously they do a lot of stuff when it comes to comics and stuff on Dan's channel, DPC, whatever it's called. But yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I'm glad that you're back, Mrs Crossfire. You've been gone for a few weeks, and you come back for last week's intro and outro, and hopefully the next few episodes we'll be able to get in the can in the next few weeks, just so that we've got stuff, because we've got a few busy weeks, so if we can get a handful in the can, it won't matter, because we can just slap an intro and outro on, because realistically, we're just playing the waiting game to go back in December. Obviously, we have, the Emma Butler Memorial Show coming up at the end of October, and we'll hopefully get a chance to eventually do the High Octane episode to really do a preview of that, hopefully sooner than later. I don't want to leave it too close to the event, but yeah, we're plugging along. All of Pete's info that he did talk about will be linked as well. Obviously, as I said, Brainbuster, Australian Outlaw, I'll link their Facebooks and their Instagrams as well, because, they're both great group of people. Give them a follow, etc., etc. And then obviously we're there. Linktree, Novalee has all of her socials, the Court and Conversation socials. You're going to have to add the new one, Mrs. Crossfire. You've added the new one. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Because if you follow me, obviously there's my Crossfire page, the graphics page, the GoFundMe, the Amazon wishlist, yada, yada, yada. But as we announced in the last week's episode, we ended up doing it that night. We have a Patreon. We have 4 tiers. The first tier, it's $5 Australian, only $3 US. And we called it Rogue, which gives you early access to episodes. Pretty simple to the point. The second one is called The Essential. and it is currently gimping out of me right now as I'm trying to read this. But basically, you also get early access, plus you get the opportunity to ask a question or a topic or whatever that we will address in the intro. That's the brownies. That's okay. We'll quickly power through this. $15 was main event. And again, you get early access plus the same perk as the $10 of Answer Question. But you actually get the opportunity to pick a specific request for an episode, whether that be a specific wrestler top 10 that I enjoy working on, a future Markapalooza topic, or a match for one of our upcoming Markapalooza topics, or even just a match you want to hear myself and Mrs Crossfire or Nova Lee do a watch-along to. Be sure to double check that we haven't done it before, because there has been a handful of watch-alongs on the pod that we've done. And just keep note that, if you do request a top 10 or a Markapalooza, that they can take up to a month to produce, just because, one, that with the top 10s specifically, we go through literally hundreds of matches before we narrow them down. I try my best to be, do my due diligence. And obviously, with the Markapalooza, if we do, depending on the format, you guys may request, we've got the Rumble format, the willy-nilly format where we just make our own cards, and then obviously there's the one with the fan voting. So depending on what you do, we may need, the couple of weeks to get the fan votes, and, we'll need at least 2 weeks tops to just do fantasy writing in general. But yeah, that's a thing. And then the final one was Supernova, because obviously she, I steal a line from Coyote when he talks about M. She is my queen. She is my Supernova. So she's the top tier. Yeah, I wish that was on video, because you will get, if you subscribe to the $20 tier, Patreon exclusive. It won't go up on the YouTube, nowhere else. You will get the video footage of my and Mrs Crossfire, Nova Lee's facial expressions, our genuine reactions to watching these matches. And obviously it is just the footage of us, not the matches. You will probably be able to hear the matches, but you won't get to see the actual footage just for copyright issues. Yeah. I don't want that. And then eventually, if we do enough watch-alongs, I might do a little compilation video of a little 30-second to a minute blooper reel of, hey, subscribe and you can see this. But yeah, it's basically just hang out, subscribe, and also if you do the $20 subscription, for as long as you subscribe, you will get a shout-out in the intro to each episode. Hopefully I covered my bases. I had it written in front of me, and then for some reason my phone, I think I've got just too many apps open currently. The Patreon app just decided it didn't like me. But yeah, we've got Patreon, but check all the links. It's all there. Speaking of links, really quickly, I will go through this. We have September 21st, Saturday, September 21st, as we mentioned in this conversation with Pete, we have Alpha Energy 8. This will take place at the Pipeworks Market for the price of $2. I know I ranted a lot about that in the Ray Picante episode last week, but I just cannot stress that enough. That's just $2 to see wrestling, and then they've got the souvlaki trucks and all the little stalls and the ball pit and everything else that Pete was talking about. That's just awesome. But the actual big show, Inevitable, done by AR Design, by the way. Fucking awesome poster. I love his work. The link for that will be in the description. And then October 20th, Sunday, October 20th, MXW presents Sunday Sesh at the Sets in Mildura. The link for that is below. Of course, the big one, I'm actually wearing my Radiation Kick shirt right now. Emma Butler Memorial Show, October 26th. The link is below, of course. We've talked about it ad nauseum. Nova Lee's going to be second row, cheering and booing. She's going to bring her cue cards just in case, brother, because, always bring the give it. She's looking forward to just cheering and booing, and I'll be on play-by-play. We're trying to raise money for a great cause. ECW Hard Day's Fight, November 23rd, ECW's third show, our last show of the year. I feel like with the 2 shows we've had so far and the way this show's shaping up, I think our debut year has been pretty good, to be honest. I've really enjoyed it, and I cannot wait to be there and call the action. Nova Lee's there, going to be there, doing the ring announcing, potentially commentary again. Who knows? We're still waiting on confirmation from management on that, but going to be a great show, going to be awesome. We'll obviously, once everything has been announced and we get a bit closer, we're going to do our usual, we'll do the preview. Perhaps more wrestlers will hijack the show, who knows. And then MXW All for One 2, November 3rd. the match that I fantasy booked last week's episode was just announced today as I record this on Monday night. Richie Taylor versus Bobby Fish at All For One. That will be an absolute banger. It's going to be stiff. It's going to be technical. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be the personification of wrestling. Link to that will be in the description below. Nova Lee, if you want to quickly hit us with a song and match one more time.
Alrighty.
And we can get out of here, get those brownies, because fuck, they smell good.
So the song of the week was Daddy Cop by Xander Hawley, and the match of the week was Joel Bateman versus Terry Shaw versus Pete Morgan in a triple threat no-roped bar wire match on June 29th, 2024, just a few months ago.
And again, you can watch that on either DMDU's YouTube channel in just in its entirety, or, again, it's a cheap plug, but I had a lot of fun doing it. Check out myself, Pete, DPC, reacting to it on DPC's channel. It'll be this past Wednesday when it goes up. So if you do subscribe to the Patreon, we'll have 2 days ago, or it'll be 4 days ago if you're listening to this on the Sunday when it drops. But very, very much enjoyed that. Very much enjoyed this conversation. The brownies smell amazing. They're probably going to make me itchy because we did put peanut butter in them, but I don't care. Craving some peanut butter. I've got a rash on my arm because someone was mowing their lawn while I went for my 7K walk today. But really enjoyed this episode. Great to have you back, Nova Lee. I love doing this podcast episode with you and bonding and spending time with my wife. Yes. I am the essential John L. Crossfire.
And I am Nova Lee.
And you were just caught
in conversation. Shaka-laka-laka.
Is that a baton in your...
Are you just happy to see me?